Good money, baby. It's your girl Dime, and I'm back with another bag talk. What's good, y'all? So it is tax season, so I'm running into a lot of different scenarios. A lot of tax clients have a lot of different questions, but the main thing seems to be them owing the IRS. So we're gonna go over how to complete a W-4 form and making sure that you're withholding enough income so that you're not owing the IRS. So real quick, let's go over some things, some key things. The main reason that people owe a balance to the IRS and other state agencies after filing their tax return is because they're not having enough income withheld. Okay, so you might want to adjust your W-4 with your employer to make sure that you're having enough income withheld so that you're not owing the IRS. Okay, adjusting your withholdings are a part of tax planning also and financial planning. So for the upcoming tax year, you might want to do some financial planning. You might want to adjust your W-4. But in this situation, we're talking about people who owe the IRS simply because they're not having enough money withheld from their income. If your tax situation is complicated, you definitely want to hire a tax advisor because they have different software systems and things like that that'll help you tax plan and make estimated tax withholdings. But the W-4 form is basically an employee's withholding certificate that tells your employer what to withhold from your federal income. Every time you get paid, they are withholding federal income tax. If they're not withholding enough, then you might owe. If they're withholding too much, then you overpaid, and that's the reason you get a refund. One of the main reasons you get a refund. If you're getting a pension and you don't have a job, then you'll use the form W-4P. But today we're talking about people who are not using enough, are not withholding enough income tax from the feds, and they're owing the IRS. So on the form W-4, your employer basically sends your withholdings to the IRS because they know most people are not responsible enough to withhold taxes or hold on to money so that they can pay their taxes at the end of the year. So the IRS make sure that the employer reports your withholdings to them, okay? So hopefully you got an employer that's responsible and reporting these withholdings in a timely manner, but nevertheless, the consequences will fall on the employer and not you. You probably want to change your employer too if they're reckless like that, but that's a whole nother story. So like I previously said, you can be tax planning and making decisions based off what you're trying to prioritize for the year. So that's another reason to adjust your withholdings. However, like I said, if you pay too little, then you'll probably owe a balance. And if you overpaid, then you'll more than likely get a refund back. Sometimes you have to have them withhold additional money. Like you're making so much money, you're already claiming zero for them to take the most out. So you still find yourself owing. You may not have any dependents. That will make a person who's making a high earning income, that will make them owe money if they don't have any dependents. So you might want to have additional money withheld so that you're not owing the IRS, okay? You want to make sure that you're on track for the rest of the year. So you want to make sure that your withholdings are correct. You're making good estimated tax withholdings because you really don't know. Your situation could change throughout the year, but at least you'll be able to make an estimate, a guesstimate based off your income. Okay, some people get bent out of shape about both, regardless if they're owing or getting a refund. Listen, I can't tell you what to put on your W-4, but I will ask you, do you want to see more of your money throughout the year or do you just want a fat refund? So I'll let people make their decision based off of those two things. But most people want to at least break even, okay? They don't want to owe and they don't care about getting a refund. They just want to make sure Uncle Sam gets his, period. Barbara Brown, good money, baby. We're talking about W-4 withholdings today. A lot of people may owe the IRS because they're not having enough of their income being withheld. So then you must adjust your W-4 and make sure your employer is withholding enough. Okay. Another thing that's on the W-4, your mailing address. You always want to use a mailing address somewhere that's reliable. So if you're a person that moves around a lot, you want to make sure that you have a secure mailing address that you can put on your W-4, because that's where your W-2s are going to go. That's why they're lost in the mail and you don't know where they're at, because you bounce around address to address. You need a stable mailing address where your W-2s would go. Okay. You want to use the correct filing status on your W-4, or else your withholdings will be off a little bit. So you can be potentially withholding too little or too much if you're using the incorrect filing status. So whichever filing status that you plan on using for the upcoming tax season, you want to use that same filing status on your W-4. That'll be appropriate. If you're married filing jointly, your spouse may also want to adjust their W-4. Everything has to be in alignment, okay? Otherwise, it'll be just wasted effort if you're not both on the same page about things. Filing exempt. A lot of people file exempt, and some people do it intentionally, and some people literally forget to update their W-4. So filing exempt, that could cost you if you don't know what you're doing. Okay, I know you want the money. I know you need the money, but you're putting yourself at risk by filing exempt for no reason and you don't know what you're doing. You'll owe taxes on the money you earned and an underpayment and penalties and interests. So don't mess with the IRS when it comes to filing exempt. It just makes your tax return and your tax history be messy for no reason. Now, legally, you can claim exempt if you didn't have a tax liability in the previous tax year and if you do not expect to have a tax liability in the current tax year. Okay, so you should be good if you do that. But again, I can't tell you what to put on your W-4. If you're still confused on how to fill out the W-4, you can definitely go to the IRS website, irs.gov, and use their tax withholding estimator on the website. It's a free tool. It's very helpful. There's a downloadable pre-filled W-4 form based off the information that you put in there. In order to get a real close guesstimate, you definitely want to have your last year's 1040 and also your last paycheck stuff from your job. That way you're entering the correct information and you can get a close guesstimate as close as possible. So that's a little bit about the W-4. For my people who's single with no dependents, you'll only have to fill out step 1 and then sign it. But again, if you're one of those persons that's single, you have no dependents, and you're a high earner, you may want to use step 4 to have extra withholdings taken out. And that's step 4C on the W-4. I don't know if y'all can see my background. Step 4C on the W-4. Okay. That's where you would put additional withholdings. So step 1 is basically you entering your personal information, your first name, last name, social security, address. Remember, use a good mailing address. You may have a physical address and a mailing address. Your physical address is where you physically be, but your mailing address is where you get all of your important documents. So let's use a mailing address when filling out your W-4 because that's where your employer is going to mail your W-2, okay? That's another problem. People can't file their taxes, still haven't filed their taxes yet because their W-2s are lost in the mail. So if you got multiple jobs or your spouse works multiple jobs, that's when you'll check the box in step 2, step 2C. I'm not gonna go too deep into that I went over basically if you're married filing jointly, your spouse may also want to update their W-4 withholdings because y'all want to be on the same page about things. You're basically planning for your taxes. You're planning not to owe, okay? We don't want to owe. So we want to make sure that we adjust our W-4 forms. On step 3, this is where you claim dependents and other credits. So if you have dependents, you want to put how many dependents and multiply the number of qualifying children under age 17 by 2,000. Okay, so that Aja Nicole Robinson, thank you so much for the stars. Good money, baby. Yeah, if y'all just tuning in, we're talking about the W-4 Employees Withholding Certificate. A lot of people, most people owe the IRS simply because they didn't have enough withholdings taken from their checks, their paychecks, every time they get paid. So now they owe the IRS. So I always tell tax clients, you want to go back and adjust your W-4, okay? Me as a tax professional, I can't tell you what to put on your W-4, but I will ask you, do you want to see most of your money throughout the year, okay, every time you get paid, or do you just want to have a fat refund? That's how you should base your decision on your withholdings on the W-4, because you may not be withholding enough, okay? And there's areas on the W-4, there's a line where you could choose to have extra withholdings removed from your paychecks every time you get paid. Itemize if your itemized deductions is not more than the standard deduction, okay? The IRS is already giving you that standard deduction. I think filing head of household is $20,800 right now. So, sorry, somebody's calling me. So keep that in mind also when you're completing your W-4. And there's general instructions on the W-4, okay? It literally says the purpose of this form, complete form W-4 so that your employer can withhold the correct federal income tax from your pay. If it's too little, that ain't blowing me up. If it's too little withheld, generally you'll owe a tax. But if you overpaid, then you'll get a refund, okay? That's the reason why it says overpaid on your Form 1040 at the bottom line. This is what you overpaid. Or if you didn't withhold enough, your credits didn't make the tax liability get smaller, then you may owe, okay? So always inquire reasons for you owing before you just jump to conclusions. And you might want to hire a tax professional, work with a professional, somebody who can help guide you into making better decisions. But again, that's when it becomes a tax planning thing. When you start becoming really serious about your finances, you can tax plan, okay? So, yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'm about to hop up off of here. I do have a lot of things that I got to get done today. So make sure y'all follow me and support me on all socials, Tax City Bag Talk. Subscribe to the YouTube. We on TikTok. And thank y'all for supporting on Facebook.